Hello and welcome to Simplify TV, the web series and podcast for agencies, brands, marketers, and media buyers. I'm David McBee. Our guest today is Chad Hallert, Chief Marketing Officer at Good Giant. Chad is a 20-year digital marketing veteran and one of the country's leading gaming and tourism-focused creative agencies. With a global portfolio spanning gaming, entertainment, hospitality, education, and more, Chad has led digital strategy for multiple Fortune 500 companies. Recognized as one of Direct Marketing News 40 Under 40, Chad currently spearheads marketing strategy for over 25 resort casinos across the U.S. Beyond driving digital transformation for clients, Chad educates aspiring marketers as an adjunct professor at the University of Nevada, Reno. Welcome to Simplify TV, Professor.
Thanks for having me, David. I feel like I need a British accent or something. After that.
I know it's just the word professor. You feel like Professor.
That's awesome. Thanks so much. I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
I'm happy to have you here, and I'm excited to have this conversation about tourism and the gaming industry. So let's just jump right into it. Why don't you share what you think is the greatest opportunity for marketers within the travel and tourism industry?
Sure. Yeah, it's a great question. I'm super passionate about it. Number one, travel in and of itself is a complicated endeavor, right? The customer journey for travel is fairly complex. Hotels, resorts, casinos, they often see the very tail end of that, which could be, a room booking or ticket sales 2 to 3 days before somebody gets there. But the reality is somebody's been doing research for weeks and months, looking at a lot of different sites, getting a lot of different information. So the idea of omni-channel or customer journey focused campaign planning is essential. We find in reality, clients understand it, but they don't actually do it. And so where this comes to fruition with us, with clients, prospects, people we speak to, they get the idea, they've done the work of making sure brand standards are set. But what we see is there's actually a direct response team at the very bottom of the funnel doing paid search, maybe some website remarketing, focusing on sales, return on ad spend, return on investment. And the brand team is still kind of reporting that they used to in the 1980s. I mean, it's looking at eyeballs on a freeway driving by a billboard, which, are they even looking at your billboard, or are they on their phone if they're in the passenger seat? What is the actual value there? So there's this huge gap and almost different methodology in play where we think, number one, that's inefficient, keeping even more money from shifting. Number two, it skips this kind of middle ground, which is really CTV and streaming audio, which kind of blends the best of both worlds, right? So it's a really strange environment in that there's this omni-channel acknowledgement, but when it comes time to do the work of how are we going to execute the campaign, how do we measure success at each point, and then how do we message, across those channels, there's still a lot to be done.
So what is the trick to accomplishing that? What's missing?
Yeah, I mean, part of it is culture, right? Part of it is culture is helping the clients, the prospects, their leadership understand there is a buyer's journey. It's not a quick decision oftentimes to come to Las Vegas or come to a market. There's an exploratory period. You can influence and gain market share. The other part of it is, for us as an agency, we have to come with ideas. We have to come with this idea of, hey, an ad isn't an ad isn't an ad. It's part of a story. So we're going to come to you with 3 or 4 parts of that ad that tell a narrative, from how great Vegas is a great example, from how great the destination is, how much fun the resort is and the brand experience, to the amenities offered, to a promotional element. And then we need to actually go further to explain how these different channels, Facebook, streaming audio, connected TV, give you the opportunity to kind of mix these advertisements and tell a story. So a big part of it for us is to culturally get some buy-in to this and then come prepared with an actual plan that could be implemented that the client agrees with and understands. And along with that is a measurement plan. How do we know if it's going to work? What's success look like? Are we going to measure foot traffic attribution? Are we going to measure ad engagement? What's the measurement for that ad and that position in the customer journey?
So let's role play just a little bit, if you wouldn't mind. Assume I'm one of your clients and I'm having a hard time making that connection between traditional media, omni-channel, and digital. What does that conversation sound like, if you could even have it in less than a few minutes?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to have it in less than a few minutes, but I think, we can tell it through analogies. We can also tell it through some of our experience, right? So An example is actually a recent campaign we ran for a casino in Las Vegas is a great example. Can't give any names away, but it's an independent resort in Las Vegas. We call it a boutique property. There's 2,000 hotel rooms and a showroom, but for Vegas, that is boutique. There's many with 7,000, 5,000 rooms. Fairly large budget, but again, for Vegas, small budget. And they really were launching a new brand. They had 3 goals that were running in parallel: increase brand exposure, get more brand sentiment, drive revenue during the actual campaign period, and lift the average daily rate in the long term, influence kind of the ranking in all the casinos in Las Vegas, right? So part of the conversation with them was helping them understand that, there is this idea that you've got to create some awareness, generate demand, and then capitalize on that demand. And that there's different ways to do that on platforms. Google gives you a lot of copy to do it. Facebook is a blend of copy and imagery. YouTube, some of these video channels can create more emotion, right? You're not going to create emotion through a Google ad. It's really, really tough, right? Linear TV, gives you a broadcast, kind of a wide net, but not super targeted. So part of it for us was laying out a map, right? Where people are at, what they're thinking in that moment. Do they have any intent yet? When you see a TV commercial during a football game, there's no intent. You're just observing, right? When you go to Facebook, not a lot of intent unless you're part of a remarketing audience or something. But when you go to Google or one of those more user-driven campaigns, there's intent. So laying out the map of kind of that journey, laying out the mind frame of the user during that period, and then lining up what messaging can look like. And so showing how somebody that's never seen that property before, heard of that property, gets this first exposure, and how they path through that over the course of weeks and months to conversion. They start getting it. The other part is we explain how we can test it. And I think that's where most CEOs, CMOs get excited, because they hear a lot of agencies and marketers come in with all the sizzle, but they want to hear how we can do it. So what we do is we talk about, hey, there's ways we can place traditional media in certain zips in certain markets and not in other zips in other markets, and A/B test it. See if running this actually does a lift on everything else further down the funnel. So a lot of times the proof's in the pudding. So our getting them to buy into it is one thing, but getting this idea of, we can actually test it over the course of 90 days, improve it or disprove it, give us that opportunity.
I love that. And do you feel like most of the clients are up for a 90-day test? Is that too long for them to spend their money on something that may or may not work?
That's part of the conversation too, right? A lot of them will agree to a 2-week test or a 3-week test.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Well, it's funny because you read a lot of case studies about campaigns promoting freemium app downloads, where you download the app for free and then you may upgrade it and they make money that way. Well, that's a knee-jerk reaction investment, right? But like telling your wife to take time off work, packing up the kids, booking airfare, this is a pretty considered purchase. So we always ask for 90 days. 6 months is even better. And really, even a test, if it were to not go perfectly in 90 days, there's going to be a ton of learnings to iterate. And very rarely do you do these things and not have them work at all, right? It's a degree. So I don't think we've ever had a 90-day test where we walked away from it and said, sometimes it's 80% what we expected, 20% new findings that we iterate on.
I think those are great stories. Do you have any just solid advice for other agencies who are working in the travel, tourism, and gaming industry?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of gaming. Gaming is a little more direct response driven. I think hotels can be direct response driven. Destinations that we've worked with in the past, like the islands of Tahiti, Newport Beach, Lake Tahoe, where I'm at, they're a little more shiny object driven, right? So I think the one thing we always battle is, and I think we battle it internally ourselves, this desire to chase shiny objects all the time. Like I went and Googled before this just to get some knowledge going here. I Googled, top media trends 2024. All this focus on AI and we're using AI every day for copy editing, for research. But the challenge we see is most people in this space are they're not squeezing the orange fully and getting all the juice out. An example I always give is every client we talk to, a prospect we talked about geofencing. This idea that, you can go online and tell an ad platform, I want people with this intent, or you can geofence competitors that they're going to frequently and get in front of them. So we talk to the client, we say, hey, are you geofencing? Yeah, we are. Or are you geofencing like this? Are you geofencing with a third-party platform that you can download device IDs as first-party data and then bring them up into walled gardens like Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube? Oh no, we're just doing it programmatically. Okay. Well, when you geofence programmatically, are you addressing those audiences in CTV when they get back home? Oh, we're not doing that. So, it's like anything. You can do it and check the list off. Like we will acquire new clients and we'll look at a Facebook campaign, and there's, if there's a show they're selling tickets to an entertainment interest group in Facebook. When we do it, we do that. Plus we match a CRM list of lookalikes, like their best customers. Plus we pull people that bought tickets to similar events previously. Plus we're going to pull geofence people to go to other entertainment venues. So you can be on Facebook, check, right? Or you can be on Facebook with 4 or 5 different audiences in parallel kind of throughout that customer journey. So again, it's this thing of, Facebook, check, move to the next shiny object, or Facebook, okay, let's be a little more boring. Let's just squeeze every ounce of opportunity out of that channel before we move on to the next thing. So I think that's the biggest thing I see in travel, and probably other industries too.
It just occurred to me while you were talking that there's probably a geofence around every single casino in Vegas. Would you agree?
I'd be amazed if there wasn't. I mean, we're seeing geofencing on casinos. We're seeing geofencing where I live. There's a lot of like warehouses and data centers, and they're looking for employees always. So we're now having HR departments geofence those other locations and putting parameters like they go in 5 days a week, to get audiences to target for employment ads. So yeah, everywhere you go in Vegas is I would bet on that it's geofenced.
Yeah, I always tell people, if you're going to do anything nefarious, don't take your phone with you.
The kids have figured that out. My teenage daughter figured that out, but we're still learning.
You come home and her phone was in the drawer and she's out doing something she shouldn't be.
I just left it, Dad.
Okay, yeah, that's pretty smart. All right, before we go, I love to ask all my guests, what is your favorite podcast, or do you have a book that you feel has influenced your success?
Yeah, so podcast. It's interesting. It'll probably be different than what you would expect, but I kind of moved away from super business focused and tactical focused podcast a while ago, and it really been now focused on optimizing things like motivation, how to switch between tasks, how to optimize the day or get the most out of the day. Because what you find at some point, it's not the technical skills, it's your inability to have a really productive day where you're not just grinding away. So for me right now, there's a podcast called Huberman Labs. It's Andrew Huberman is the podcast lead on it, but he's like a professor of neuroscience and ophthalmology at Stanford or a university like that. And it really varies from like optimizing your day, like I mentioned, how to switch tasks with an effective break in between, to like energy optimization, nutrition. It's really broad spectrum, but those things get me excited because, there's only so much time in the day. If you're a parent and you have a life, right, you're trying to balance that. And you always get little nuggets from that podcast that let you be more effective and a little more productive.
Okay. Honestly, the whole reason I put this question in is selfishly, it helps me find amazing things. And that one is right up my alley. I'll be listening to that this afternoon. Thank you for that.
It's awesome. It's on Spotify. It's good stuff.
Awesome. All right. Well, what is the best way for viewers to learn more about you?
Yeah, I mean, LinkedIn, of course. I'm probably not as social as maybe I could be, but LinkedIn is always good. And then shoot me an email, chad@goodgiant.com.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much for being my guest today, Chad.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And thank you guys for watching. Simplify TV is sponsored by Simplify, helping you to maximize relevance and multiply results with our industry-leading media buying and workflow solutions. For more information, visit simply.fi. Thanks for joining us today. I'm David McBee. Be awesome, and we'll see you next time.